I really enjoyed The Vault. I'm just a big fan of heist movies. Anything that requires a team of people trying to steal something, I'm always on board. Was it? I mean, those movies, when as an audience member to watch films like The Vault, they're very cool to watch. I wondered if it felt quite cool to be part of a movie like that, because these are films that are so sort of steeped in cinematic history.
I think it was, you know, I guess because it's like a mastermind kind of plan, it requires for everyone to be thinking on how to complexify the story, the situation enough for it to be like pleasant to be intrigued by. You know, if everything is too easy, you're just bored. But if it's too complicated, sometimes you lose too many people. And it's how like the balance of it. And it was always like this balance it was just a certain balance to find, as well as, you know, sometimes people would understand a part, but then not the other. But then everything became more clear when we were inside the set, because sometimes, you know, something works on the page and then it doesn't work on set. It's repetitive, or it's too obvious, or it's too boring, or impossible. And so it was how we would follow very precisely the story and the intrigue between the characters, as well as try to complexify it, to just make it more vibrant or more alive or more challenging, more, you know, original.
Yeah, because I was wondering, I mean, you mentioned the kind of the complexities, I mean, to the characters in this. I mean, your character in particular, she's sort of full of mystery. She's one of those characters when you watch, you always want to know more about her. I mean, as someone who I'm sure sort of gets lots of scripts and stuff, is that quite rare to get characters like this in movies of this nature? Because it felt quite, not rare, I'd say, to watch, but she felt like a breath of fresh air in some ways.
Well, thank you, first of all. It was part of the challenge of Lorraine. It was not necessarily as much on the page, and I think I really insisted on making her not only the female of the group. Does that make sense? And so I thought she had to be present as another element. You know, there were like all these brains together, and with all these people with different skills, and she was just one. And it you know, I tried as much possible to be able to just complexify her, and to she could not be a person easy to read, not with her past, not with she could not be there and having this function within the group if she was a transparent person without a story and without and the way you don't really know what she thinks, how much she knows, how much she's intelligent or she's not, how much she is sharp or how much she's agile, gives a range to be intrigued, to not know, to not fully know, and to be surprised. And I think that's that was really important. And I think it was also important of her being very Martin, very I don't know. I thought it was really it's not that it's rare. I think it's people that need to sometimes fight for the characters to be a little more colorful. And I think it was really pleasant to have the crew on board on this. For instance, like the way she dresses is not necessarily what they would had in mind, but then they like it. They like it that she was not the common typical woman of these type of films. And I think that was really interesting to just go this way.
Yeah, well, because I've judging on sort of the roles you've taken, you just seem to be someone very attracted to kind of nuanced characters of this sort of nature. I just wondered, because I've read before that you've been referred to as a student of cinema. I'm just wondering where the love affair began with you and movies.
Pretty late, I have to say, or I have to confess, or I have to admit, or to be proud of. I grew up in the countryside. We hadn't so easily access to theaters, which is something that I tend to fight for, and to just like right now, like I think the period, this life period is really critical, because we have the ability to just lose the rare cinemas that we have left. And I think it's extremely important to just keep them going, because I think we can lose humanity if we don't have this space of freedom, or this space that we can analyze each other like humanity ourselves. My father, I remember my father was really like a moviegoer, but I didn't necessarily grew up so much with him. And I would just sometimes go to the theater. And it's more when I took off, when I was 17 and I started living on my own, that I started being intrigued on starting to be more of a moviegoer, and start to watch anything I could, anything different I could, and to develop this eye, which and I guess that has been really important to my acting career, as I never approach a movie or like a job as only an actor, but as an artist, part of a crew that interact and just actually is part of a creative team. And I think to have some knowledge of cinema, and to have like an eye that is aware of how much a frame is important, how much a script is important, I think helps you try to just raise up or to upgrade whatever you're doing.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, with this kind of like knowledge of the way it kind of all works, have you ever thought about maybe trying like writing, or maybe getting into the kind of behind the scenes stuff? Because you mentioned before about having sometimes actors or actresses need to fight on project for a role to be like how it should have been in the script, and I just wondered if that would maybe entice you one day to write your own script and create a character yourself to avoid having to fight that fight later on.
It's a hard question, because I've always looked at precisely the writing of a script, the story. I've always thought it was part of my job as well, and I think it's really important to just try to do the best you could. on that chunk of work. And sometimes I don't feel legit, as you know, I think I'm really critic. I think I have a lot of good skills about what you're saying, on having the ability to do so. But I'm part of the people that believe that you need to have a vision to be a director. And I think right now, movies are in a lack of vision in general. And I wish to just try to incite more to do so. And movies directed by actors are always interested. I remember somebody telling me that, and I believe it to be true. There's always an interesting part of it. And but sometimes I do have trouble seeing that you have movies that find a budget, that get financed because based on the success of an actor, and these people or that specific actor, know how to interact with other actors and could just be helped into like creating like a scene, but they're not necessarily Coppola. I mean, Kubrick. And how many Kubricks are not being discovered because you have so many actors directing? Some of them are incredible directors, but not all of them. And I try to respect that. And sometimes I just, if one day I do have an absolute vision and an absolute necessity of telling a story or the way, and to have a feeling that no one else could do this as well as I would, then I perhaps would, but not till then, I think.
So my final question, because it's as someone who obviously when you're like on a set and stuff, you like to kind of, sounds like you quite like to study all the different departments and the whole kind of making of a movie. I just wondered about that kind of introduction or that first big role in Pirates of the Caribbean. Must have been a fascinating and quite eye-opening kind of insight into the mechanics of the industry in some ways as a first kind of big project, because with a budget like that, a big Disney kind of blockbuster, you must have, was it ever quite overwhelming to be involved in that setup?
There was a lot to observe, and there was a lot of departments you can only see on big projects like that. But also sometimes sometimes you get the importance of each department on smaller movie too, because it's when on smaller budgets you realize how much each person is important. I've done I think every part of the scale of movie making you could ever think of. I've done the most independent films versus the biggest studio movies, and I've always been, I think it's movies is a vision of a director and of a story, and it's a crew and a team effort of people that should be brilliant and passionate. It's not something that you can do on a regular schedule, and it's not a 9-to-5 job. And I think that's it has to involve people that are absolutely passionate about their job, and that then makes that this influences a lot the result of the film that you would get. But yes, I'm always intrigued by any aspect of movie making.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Astrid. It's been a real pleasure
Thank
speaking
you.
to you, and best of luck with the release of The Vault, because I thought it was great fun, really, really great fun. It made me miss being in big crowds full of people as well. Anyway, cool. Anyway, best of luck with the release. Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you so much. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey,